Hello and welcome. You're watching DD News. I'm Gautam Roy. Well, tonight on this special show, we're talking about how India stood firm during the Nairobi WTO talks, which concluded on Saturday. India has strongly opposed the non-reaffirmation of the Doha mandate, which is meant to safeguard the interests of developing countries in global trade. While that has been disappointing, India walked away with a win on WTO's recognition of developing countries' right to have recourse to special safeguard mechanism to protect its farmers. There were deals on agriculture, export subsidies, food aid and other issues as well. Here's a report.
The 10th ministerial session of the World Trade Organization at Nairobi had to be extended for 24 hours beyond the scheduled 4 days for ministerial declaration to emerge. The major takeaways are: the Doha development agenda was not reaffirmed despite India and most countries backing it. Some members like the US and the EU sought new approaches to achieve meaningful outcomes. India ensured reaffirmation of members' right for special safeguard mechanism to raise import duties temporarily to deal with import surges and price falls. India also ensured that decision on public stockholding of food grains is reaffirmed with peace clause intact. Commitment also secured for a work plan for permanent solution to food grain stockholding issue. India also ensured that special and differential treatment will be carried on. Ministers have also agreed to abolish subsidies on farming exports. Developed countries will stop farm export subsidies immediately. Developing nations by end of 2018. Soon after the negotiations concluded on Saturday, India's Commerce Minister Nirmala Sitharaman had tweeted her disappointment at the non-reaffirmation of the Doha mandate. But she also elaborated on how India's interests were safeguarded during the crucial talks. The jury is still out whether the Doha mandate will still be relevant in future negotiations. Experts are saying new issues suiting developing countries can now be brought in. But the final sentence of the Nairobi Declaration clearly says any decision to launch negotiations on such issues needs to be agreed by all members. Bureau Report, DD News.
So how have things really gone in Nairobi as far as the WTO negotiations are concerned for the world and specifically for India? Let's talk about it. We have Dr. Sachin Chaturvedi with us. He is DG Research and Information System for Developing Countries. We're also joined by Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi. He is Chairperson Research at the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade. We also have Professor Gaurav Balla with us, expert international trade and finance. Gentlemen, welcome. First, Dr. Chaturvedi, since you were there in Nairobi, let me just ask you, what really happened over there that led to this sort of a declaration coming forth where it seems that we're going to be having a fresh look at things, going beyond Doha, and what was the need, in fact, for that 24-hour extension?
See, there are different commentaries which are coming up in terms of how the declaration for 10th Ministerial Conference be viewed. In my view, there are 3 points which are extremely important that we should bear in mind, and why the delay actually happened on 19th and things could not get concluded on 18th itself. We should not forget that at this point the debate across countries and the divisions across countries, they are extremely polarized. The countries which are in favor of going beyond the mandate that Doha provided bring in new issues and at the same time sideline the mandate from Doha. These negotiations delayed what you are asking for, the 24-hour extension to the process.
Right.
But while doing so, the point that the outcome at the end of the day, I think we need to do some introspection in terms of how we did as a country and also the outcome for developing world at large. Because India was there not only for India but also for other developing countries. So from that point of view, the as your report just now mentioned, quoting minister that she was utterly disappointed. I think her disappointment is not misplaced. Given the fact that Doha development round, though people are saying that it never appeared in the text, but if you see paragraph number 12, there is reference to development process.
Yes.
There is a reference to the exemption which Marsalimaran could get for developing countries for export of drugs. So that I think is extremely important. So number one, reference to development is there, very much there. The word Doha is missing, but Doha per se is not important. Important is commitment of trade regime for development. So that is there. Number two, the negotiators from India could ensure the fact that the SCM, the special safeguard mechanism which is required, the measures that are required, we could protect that. We can continue with that. Third and more important for India is public stock holding. Fortunately, there is extension for peace clause, and this has provided a major maneuvering space for India to manage a food subsidy. So on all these three counts, I see a hope. But definitely, we would come back later in the round on what India should do next.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, what's happened, Professor Joshi, is that it's being said that room has been left for new issues to be brought in, which is what Dr. Chaturvedi also mentioned. Now, these new issues could be in the interest of developed countries, and is that something that India and similar countries placed similarly in the world setup need to be watchful about?
No, I think one need to understand the dynamics of the international negotiations that take place. Now, theoretically, WTO, 162 members, one country, one vote. But you have seen in this Nairobi, what happens is the developed countries do exert a lot of pressure, backdoors, and for a long time. These were the areas, of their interest, labor and, the e-commerce and competition, all these environment, they wanted to put it up. And somehow, they have, working for over a decade to, put this agenda, which I think the developing countries were postponing, if not, and it was being postponed. For a very long period of time, the developed countries were also, depicting that I think Doha development agenda is very difficult to go, and therefore I think prior to beginning of the Nairobi round, what Professor Sachin has said, that they were bent upon. They were bent upon that this round does not take place. So this. But one thing I think you need to understand is that new issues are certainly not in our interest. New issues are also looked in our research as what we call as a non-tariff barriers for our products to enter into those markets. But somehow let's appreciate one thing, that India has been one country which has led. The last discussion, you are aware, only 5 countries were inside, wherein the European Union, America, Brazil, China and India. And India till the end has put the pressure,
right.
And I think try to get at least what we call in terms of the special safeguard measures,
yes.
and in terms of both the food security. I think we could able to, it is not the position is as despairing as it has been, projected in the media. At
Right.
least we could protect our interest.
Right, Professor Vallabh, these new issues, it is being said that we need to be wary of it, but at the end of the day, anything new in the agenda can only be brought in if there is unanimity among the countries. So, is there really that much of a cause of worry here?
See, as we had seen that now at in these negotiations, the entire world is segregated into 2 poles. One pole led by the developing and the LDCs, another by the developed. And now they are saying that we don't want to reaffirm the DDA, that the consensus was not bought. I am looking at from the another perspective, because there are some issues for developing nations also which can enter into the new negotiations, which can enter into the new agenda, which can enter from the LDC perspective also, because world had changed in the last 10-15 years. So first perspective, we should see that it's not always that if it is not reaffirmed, it will be bad for developing nations or LDCs. There may be new agendas which can be brought into the discussion in the next round or whenever the next discussion took place. Another issue, from Indian perspective, there is one important thing I perceive that for transport and logistics, they had extended the export subsidy for till 2023. So we had enough time to build the infrastructure. So if that if we move into that race, then it will help to create the infrastructure, or the infrastructural development will happen for the country. So because as right now the contribution of our country is not very high as far as the global counterparts are compared. So if we can take it's something like this, that if it's a blessing in disguise, if we want to take the opportunity that when the logistic subsidy is extended till 2023, then naturally our infrastructure commitment will go up, and if infrastructure commitment will go up, then naturally the GDP or other Make in India initiatives can also get benefit out of that. Another issue is the one thing which a lot of experts had missed is on the IT front. Because in this round, this negotiation, a lot of IT products and services first time had entered into the negotiation, and consensus was built, and they went to the next level. So definitely the Indian companies, especially in the IT and the ITES sector, is going to get benefit out of that, and the trade barriers for these companies are going to come down, and naturally we will be going to get the benefit out of those things.
Okay, that's an interesting observation as well. But Dr. Chaturvedi, what do you make of Professor Vallabh's submission that one has to see an opportunity in that challenge as well of new issues creeping in? Maybe India can also bring in some new issues that go beyond Doha and make things better for us, for our not just our farmers, but all the people who put in a lot of hard work into earning a livelihood.
I think, Gautam, it's important that we take a historical view of these negotiations. Some of us who have been in the profession to follow it up for all this while would like to somehow connect these new issues with 1996 and the first WTO ministerial in Singapore, where developed countries wanted trade, investment, labor to be brought in. And why? Why do they want these issues to come in? Precisely because developing countries which are producing on a mass scale, their products have figured much better in the global export market. Like
more competitive.
More competitive. And this is what they want to take away from us, because they want same labor standards which they are spending on in US or in EU, farm products, same quality, as per their sort of expenditure. They want us to go completely out of the market, and that's why these issues are being thrusted upon us. India, right from the beginning, has been resisting this. One very clear example of this is cotton. Cotton subsidies by US and EU dumped all across the markets, including in India, led to major collapse of cotton prices all across the world.
And it apparently affected Africa more than India.
Yeah, exactly. So India, Mali, Burkina Faso, Burundi and Brazil, they came together to dispute panel in the WTO. We fought it, we won, and there is now in this round an outcome on cotton, which is extremely important. But unfortunately, this outcome is confined to LDCs. India and South Africa, which were very much party to the whole process, they have been excluded from
emerging economies.
So that's what I was saying in the beginning, that we need to do some introspection in terms of our negotiating strategies, in terms of how we fight it. Like, for instance, as Dr. Joshi very rightly mentioned, on export subsidies. There were interest, and we wanted them to be eliminated. In 2005, Hong Kong WTO ministerial, it was promised that the subsidies on agriculture would be phased out by 2013. The CAP reforms, the US subsidy reforms.
Not all subsidies in agriculture.
The developed countries, all subsidies would be removed. But unfortunately, in this round, the focus was hovering around export subsidies and not on agriculture subsidies. So that's where our attack should have been there. The outcome on new issues, as you were proposing, I think the idea of trade facilitation, and India supported it, is something important. And on IT, let me point it out that it's a plurilateral agreement to which India is not party. And we did not approve it in the first round, in the first IT1.
We resisted it all the time.
We resisted, and unfortunately we had to provide market access.
Absolutely.
net importers of IT products
Yes, we
through
are.
electronic transfers. So
But
I
that
think
hopefully will change in the coming years with the initiatives of the current government with Make in India.
yeah, definitely. I hope that is built up, and more important there is in terms of new trajectory that our firms would charter on. So from that point of view, I think we need to do some introspection in terms of how to ensure our industrial interest. After all, China grew in the world market despite of not being member of WTO. Major growth in China happened in that period. So we need some time for preparing our firms, our industry, and bring in pragmatism in our approach. World is changing fast, and as I think you very rightly pointed out, the world is not of 1995 or 2005 or 2001. We are in times when LDC participation in global trade has expanded. And that's why their qualification for aspiring for similar exemptions is no more there.
Right. Professor Joshi, you wanted to add something, and let me add a question to that in terms of what you wanted to say is, does it suit then India for there to be a bit of a status quo and little movement forward till the time that we've built up our own capacities to the desired level?
You have seen that, especially India's interest basically was the farm subsidies. And if you see the farm subsidies after, the WTO 1995, all countries committed to reduce the farm subsidies.
Yes.
The basic problem is, in the WTO technicalities of that, the green box and the blue box and, amber box, all these boxes. 95% of the subsidies which America provides falls into the green box. For India, it is only 42% of the subsidies that provide. So, technically they have articulated the whole process. Now, you talk of food products. Milk, India is the most competitive in terms of milk production. India is the largest producer of milk on the earth. But still you find the foreign milk and milk products coming in this market. Why? They, in absolute terms, developed countries, especially the US and the EU, they have increased the total subsidy on agriculture rather than reducing it despite of their commitment in that WTO. So I think one thing is you need to understand the between the lines, and therefore I think they are very adamant on reducing these, or or what you call as very innovative. And if you have come out with the statement of the DG of the WTO, he has said it has been something which was never achieved in last 20 years. So I think it's a perception. It was something which was never achieved in last 20 years. So, but anyway, India has put up its case.
Because it was not desirable.
It was not desirable from developing countries part of it. And this time you have seen even Brazil has taken their side, Brazil has left our side. So one thing is, the problem is not with India, but problem is with the other developing countries who could not stand firm on their stand. But I think a great credit goes to India. We remain firm on the stand, but most, including Brazil, most African countries, most Latin American countries, they changed the, so I think this has been a great problem during this round.
You wanted to add something?
Yes,
I'll
definitely.
Go to,
when I was adding this point of introspection, I wanted to add this point that we need to do prior consultations with our key partners. India, Brazil, South Africa, IPSA.
Absolutely right.
This is an extremely important grouping. Time has come when we should revive that. We are interacting with Brazil in the forum which is BRICS, and not in IPSA. IPSA is something where Brazil and South Africa and India are at a similar stage of economic development. In BRICS, China and Russia are at very different level. We cannot, though China extended full support to India during these negotiations, but as Dr. Joshi rightly pointed out, Brazil left us, largely because we did not do pre-consultations with Brazil.
Pre-consultation, and there has to be a diplomatic efforts done with the countries which could support. Ultimately, there are 162 countries, and most countries are not the developed countries. So that was one thing.
Because at the end, I feel that India should not be perceived as the only left out.
No, India never perceived to be left out.
Let me complete, Mr. Joshi.
India took the lead.
So we should not, because now the way LDCs are living, and they are moving towards the new declaration and leaving, not reaffirming the way Brazil, as Professor Joshi was pointing out. So it should not perceive that we are anti-trade, we are anti-internationalization, anti-commerce, trade, international trade, finance. We are not as much open as we were. So that thing we have to always keep in mind,
Right.
because although DDA is good, there is no argument against that. But the way the environment of the WTO talks are changing, the way India was there 10 years or 5 years back, the country's support which India was getting, the way they were leaving us, so we should not be perceived, and at the end we are doing something which the benefit these LDCs are going to get.
Yes.
So but we were not able to, we were perceived that we are left out in this type of things.
No, India incidentally is not perceived to be anti-trade. Developed countries understand very well that India is one which understands the issue. They also perceive that the homework done by India is much greater than the homework done by most LDCs or the African and a number of Latin American countries. And this has been, despite you are aware that India's share in the international trade is 1.7%, whereas China's share in world trade is 12.5%.
Yeah.
So there is a vast difference. But despite this, India could take a lead, and the only thing which we feel is we could have done a bit more the diplomatic efforts with the like-minded countries, low-income countries. Ultimately, earlier we agreed to TFA, trade facilitation agreement.
Yes.
We agreed to TFA, and any negotiation in WTO is give and take. If you give something, then you get something. The only thing is, I think, some introspection that we need to do is what we considered and what did we
means
get.
we were raising the voice of those people who are not appreciating that we are raising their voice. That's what I want.
No, you are right, but I think appreciating the voice is not only appreciating, there are many other dynamics involved which
No, the
negotiators
other dynamics are
understand well.
also the fact that all countries are moving towards multilateral agreements at different levels, from bilaterals to multilaterals. These are regional types. And
You are
do
very
think
right.
That's something that India should also now prioritize, Dr. Chaturvedi.
Yeah, Gautam, I think in the WTO ministerial, we launched our report on the sidelines of one of the meetings, where we discussed how these mega regionals have come up, like the Trans-Pacific
Yes.
Partnership, TPP, and RCEP, TTIP. So developed countries have lost interest in WTO completely. They just came here to get the acts that they did in the past validated.
Okay.
And this is what has happened. So the disappointment that some experts in the media commented upon in terms of missing the word Doha. After all, what is Doha? What Doha stands for?
It represents
Doha
the
represents
desire to equalize, levels of
exactly,
skills.
precisely. You are absolutely right. This is in terms of the commitments that developed countries made from 1995 to 2005 and did not come up with this. In 2001, when we launched Doha Development Round and when we met in Hong Kong 5
To a
years
certain
later,
extent, the
they
sense of
promised.
disappointment is similar, Nairobi and Paris.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You said it. And there, I think the idea is, how do you bring in discipline in the multilateral forum? Developed countries do not want to follow any discipline.
Okay.
They promised market access. They promised tariff quotas removal. We removed it. Our apples lost out to Australian apples in Delhi market in 2004. If you recall, Australia and US started exporting apples, and Himachal Pradesh apples were thrown out of the market. But if you see United States, even in the new TPP, and in this report we have shown, they wanted 30-year exemption for implementation of TPP for tariff quotas. So from that point of view, I think it's extremely important that we bring in discipline in the multilateral system, but developed countries do not want that. And as a result, India gets isolated. So India has to do, as Dr. Joshi very rightly said, more diplomatic effort to engage other countries. That's point number one. Point number two is revive this committee on regional trade agreements, the CRTA. Which is extremely important. The declaration mentions about it.
Right.
All these regional arrangements that are coming in, they are in violation of Article 24 of WTO.
Okay.
So how we bring in a compatibility in that. And third, and I think much more important, is this whole idea of rules of origin. The LDCs have got a 75% exemption. So they can import things and still can export, while sort of grace period has been given to them of 75%. So these 4 points, I think, are extremely important to analyze the outcome of the Nairobi ministerial.
All right, that sounds wonderful. I think that is something that can be worked upon, and we will see that happening in the coming days as well. Thanks a lot for joining us this evening for this chat, and that's the way to go forward as far as negotiations at the world stage are concerned in the WTO. It's still a lot of work that needs to be done as far as India is concerned, and needs to find partners to take that work forward as well. Stay tuned for all the latest to DD News. We will keep tracking all the developments in the nation and the world as well right here on this channel.